We're going to meet with Alison Cochrun tonight. She's the author of The Charm Offensive. And for now, I'm going to turn the comments off so that you can see Alison without words going across her page or her face. But when we get towards the end, I will turn them back on so that if you want to ask a question. So just so you know, comments are going to be off for the main body of the conversation, but I will turn them back on at the end. So let's do that right now. Just don't want to leave anybody out, but also it just makes it easier to see Alison. So hi, thank you for coming. So I've been super excited about this one. I have my copy too, and my copy is an ARC.
Oh yeah.
And what's super special about this one for me, besides the fact that I just love the story, is that this is the first ARC I read after I started working at Vintage Books last summer.
Oh, I love that.
So it's just extra special. So I'm super excited that Alison is here tonight. And I was going to start, Alison, by just asking you to, I suspect that most people who are in the audience have probably read the book by now, but it's possible that they haven't all. So if you could just start out by just talking a little bit about what the Charm Offensive is, what it's about, without giving anything good away.
Yeah, so the Charm Offensive is about a somewhat disgraced, Silicon Valley tech genius who decides, in a very misguided attempt to rehabilitate his public image, to go on a reality dating show very similar to The Bachelor. And in the process of trying to, find love with the 20 women on the show, he ends up developing a connection with his male producer, and that is the basic journey of the book.
Yes, and we don't want to say anything else because we give too much away. I'm very curious. I know I follow you on Instagram, so I know that you watch some of the reality TV shows. But I know that probably part of the impetus for this book came from that. But I'm just really curious what the sort of birth or origin story is of the book, because it was just, for me, a really creative place to set a book. And also, I mean, I haven't watched a lot, but I've watched some, so it read really true. So I was very curious whether you, so the origin story first, and then if you had any, if you had experience or insight or knowledge of that kind of setting that you like, people you knew that you could talk to or something, because it did just really read as if, you'd been on the set and kind of knew what happened.
Yeah, no, I have no insider information into the world of reality dating shows, but I am a longtime viewer of reality dating shows, and very specifically of the Bachelor franchise. So I got really kind of into watching it pretty consistently, throughout my 20s, and because it's very much like a social event. Like, my friends all watch it, we watch together, we talk about it. We have a very complicated relationship with the franchise because, of course, it's very problematic. And so the book really, the inspiration was, it was a little over 2 years ago now, and we were watching a season of The Bachelorette. It was the very end of the school year. I'm a teacher, and all my seniors were gone, so I was just cleaning out my classroom and was kind of bored at work. And I started wondering what would happen if someone like me went on The Bachelor, right? I was single, and I was what would happen if someone like me went on a show like The Bachelor? And I discovered pretty quickly in my thoughts that would never happen, right? So someone like me would never go on one of these shows for a lot of reasons, but mostly because I have mental health issues that are often, in the world of reality dating shows, exploited or vilified. And also, the reality dating shows are very heteronormative. And so they really do not create space for queer stories. I was, at the time, closeted and processing my sexuality, but I knew that someone like me would never be on one of these shows. But for some reason, that question really intrigued me. And so I kept coming back to it and being But what if, like, under what circumstances might someone like me end up on a show like The Bachelor? And then the character Charlie was sort of born out of that question.
Well, that's very cool. It's always intriguing to me to ask that question because everybody has, I mean, obviously every story is different. Everybody has different answers, but it's always like this interesting mashup, I think, with people where this piece of a story comes from here and this piece of a story comes from here, and then out comes this beautiful story. And I wondered, I had asked you earlier, could you share a passage from the book that you really like?
Sure. So I can read a short passage. I am going to just choose because I want to pick something that doesn't like contain major spoilers. So this is in the very beginning of the book. It's Charlie's like first point of view chapter, and so it's just the part where we are introduced to him as a character. So I'll read for just like 2 minutes. Do we think the crown is a bit much? Maureen Scott doesn't look up from her phone or in any way acknowledge he's spoken. Charlie shifts awkwardly in the town car back seat, the tux pulling across his chest in all the wrong ways. His body hasn't felt like his own since they waxed it and tanned it and dressed it in very pungent cologne. The least they could do is let him remove the crown so he doesn't look like stripper Prince William. He even had to double check the tux wasn't a tearaway. Sorry, did I go away for a second there?
You did. We ended the
Sorry.
last. No, it's okay. The last sentence you read was "Tex wasn't a tearaway."
Sorry.
That's okay.
However, there were enough nudity clauses in his contract to raise legitimate concern. He looks down at the magazine lying casually on the seat between them and experiences the cognitive dissonance of seeing photos of himself. If he could look in the mirror right now, he knows his face would be sweaty and red, pinched together anxiously at the corners of his eyes and the corners of his mouth. But the man on the magazine cover isn't anxious about anything. His face is smooth, his eyes friendly, his mouth casually tilting in the corner. The man on the magazine cover is a stranger. The man on the magazine cover is a lie he has to live for the next 2 months. He's made a deal with the proverbial devil, and he can't control much about his circumstances at the moment, but at the very least, he could take off this stupid plastic crown. He reaches up. Don't do that, dear, Maureen Scott snaps, eyes still on her phone. Even with the dear, there is an edge to her words, and his hands fall limply at his sides. He's stuck with the crown then. Or he could jump out of this moving vehicle and abort this foolish, misguided publicity stunt right now. He tests the door handle, but of course it's locked. He's been labeled a flight risk, which is why the show's creator is personally escorting him from the studio to the set. I'll just stop there for now.
That's a great setup, and everybody's like, "But wait, what happens next?" One thing that I really appreciated personally about this book, and I think you spoke to it a little bit earlier when you were talking about not the fact that you wouldn't, they wouldn't have you on a reality TV show, because I mean, for those who haven't read it, there is a very, it's not just, Charlie and the producer that the gay love story in the book, but there's all kinds of representation of all different sexualities, all different genders. And I also just really appreciated the normalization of mental health struggles. I think that often when we deal with it in books or TV shows, it often becomes this thing that is the central focus of, like, this is bad, or this is like, this person just needs to be fixed. And I think what was really special about the Charm Offensive is that it wasn't something that had to be fixed. It was something that you needed to learn to cope with, but it wasn't something that was wrong with you. And I was curious, and it sounds like maybe the answer is yes, but I was just really curious, was that something, that normalization of that, was that something that you set out to do sort of at the beginning, like consciously, or was that just part of what came out in the story?
Yeah, actually, it wasn't conscious at all in my first draft. So the interesting thing about kind of the drafting process of this book is I came up with that idea where I was wondering, like, about me on The Bachelor, and it was a Wednesday, and the next day was Thursday, I started writing. And I actually finished the first draft in 6 days. So I started writing it within like the week, or the initial idea and the first draft being complete. It was only a week. And so I didn't really do a lot of thought. I didn't do a lot of planning as I sat down to write it. And so what came out was very much just kind of the story that I needed to tell myself. And so a lot of the mental health stuff was actually not really premeditated. It was just the story that I ended up writing. And when I looked back at the draft, that was a part that I really, that was important to me. And so that was part of the story that I really nurtured throughout the revision process.
What about the representation? Was that also something that that just sort of happened, or was that something that got weaved in as you went along during edits?
Representation in terms
of sexualities and genders.
Yeah, no, I mean, I knew it was going to be a queer story. I mean, that was kind of like the central idea.
Yeah.
If we tell this queer story, we're in the really heteronormative world of reality dating shows. And so the sexuality representation, like kind of the variety of representation, a lot of it happened on the first draft. Though I will say, as I did the revision process, the book contains a character who's on the asexual spectrum. And so it has discussions about like demisexuality. And those were things that I kind of developed as I continued revising. And because as I was writing this book, I was also reaching a deeper understanding of my own identity. And so I was able to sort of, I would say, enrich and like add nuance to Charlie's story.
Yeah.
Kind of understood my own story better.
I'm curious, as jumping from the story a little bit to the experience of having a book come out in the middle of what we're going through now. And because it's such an exciting thing to have a new book come out, but obviously, we're fairly significantly curtailed as far as, like book launch parties and being able to interact with people who've read the book. And I'm curious how that has impacted your experience, how you've worked around it, and how you've made it a special thing for yourself and for fans, even though you can't be in person with most of them.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting because obviously there are some really quintessential author experiences that I haven't to have, right? So when you imagine writing a book and publishing a book, you imagine yourself doing an in-person book signing, right? And getting to sit at the table and having the books and getting that face-to-face interaction with readers. And so that, I was kind of disappointed when it became really clear that the pandemic was going to continue, that I wasn't going to have those opportunities. But at the same time, it's the only way I've known. So I don't have anything to compare it to reality. And it's also been, I don't know, I'm really, really lucky to be able to connect with a lot of readers, primarily through Instagram. So I've been really fortunate, and that face-to-face interaction that I imagined having with a book signing isn't there, but so many people have reached out to me, like in my DMs or sent me an email through my contact page, and I've been able to talk to readers about their experience with this book. And that has been by far the most meaningful part of writing a book and sharing it with the world. And so I'm so, so grateful for that. And I think I've been able to connect with a lot of readers that maybe I otherwise would have been able to, if we were in an only in-person event world. So that has been. And then, it's been really fun to just like find other ways, kind of as you mentioned, of course, Vintage Books is my local indie. And so being fall to do signed personalized copies, to do this, this holiday giveaway with prints, and to find just kind of ways, to send out little goodies and things, just because the people who have read this book have been so incredible. And I'm just like so, so grateful for all the readers on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok that have shared this book with other people and have talked about it. And so it's been a really fun way to kind of connect with.
Yeah. I think that's the really interesting thing about this, is that it's there are downsides, obviously, you know, that there's a little bit of disconnect when you can't like meet with people and talk to them in person, but it's forced us to be a little creative about how we do stuff. And I think in some ways we reach more people because we're having to do things online. So it's kind of a, you know, it cuts both ways, I think. Um, I'm curious, this would be like something that that you can share, obviously, because I'm guessing you've gotten things just because of the nature of this book and how special it is to a lot of people that you wouldn't share because they're personal. But is there anything like in your overall experience with fans, or even just like something special that you've received from a few people, or that you would be that's okay to share with people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really just generally a lot of people have reached out to say, you know, that they have, especially with Charlie as a character, that he has made them feel seen and validated, you know, in his experiences with mental illness and his mental health, but also with his experiences in navigating his sexuality and being queer and being on the asexual spectrum. And what's been really interesting is, you know, people will reach out and be like, thank you, you made me feel so seen by writing this character. But Charlie is such a deeply personal character that every time I get one of those messages, I also feel really seen. It's like this
Okay.
kind of interesting reciprocal
Yeah.
relationship. And I didn't kind of know to anticipate. But every time I get one of those messages, it's it's really nice because it also makes me feel less alone in my own experiences. And so that's been really, really special. And those messages, yeah, they everything to me. Uh, you know, or people will tell me too, anytime someone says they got back into therapy, or that
Mhm.
they, you know, I've had people say like, oh, I read your acknowledgments, I'm trying to find a queer therapist, because my queer therapist has been my life saver throughout this whole experience. So that's always great. But on a like lighter note, I love seeing fan art. And so one of the really cool things has been getting to see fan art, primarily on Instagram. And then a couple people have sent me like prints of that art that I get to have.
Oh,
Um, and that's really cool and special.
that's fun. I'm gonna pop my head down out of the view for just a second. I need to make sure my phone is plugged into juice.
Oh, sounds good. No worries. I love the Star Wars poster in the background.
That's
Amazing.
my daughter's. I have to give her credit for that.
Hey,
I'm stealing her room tonight, so she's at college, and so I can steal from her. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's charging or not, so hopefully I won't disappear randomly at some point. Um, yeah. Oh gosh, and that made me lose my train of thought.
no worries.
What was I gonna say? Oh well, okay, that's all right. Um, I know that you have another book coming out next year,
I
and I'm
did.
very excited about that. And I'm curious. I don't think there's been a cover reveal yet.
Not yet.
Okay. So I'm curious, like, if you can share anything about it, that would be awesome. I know there's some things that you probably can't yet, but I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yes. So next fall of 22, I have a Christmas rom-com coming out. It's a queer, specifically sapphic holiday rom-com about two women kind of falling in love. It's set in Portland, which is like fun and special to me. Yeah, it's called Kiss Her Once for Me. It has like a twist on a fake dating trope, and I am super excited about it. I often say that it's like a Hallmark Christmas movie, but with like women falling in love, but it's also like much angstier and much steamier. And so,
That sounds fabulous. I'm excited. And then you have a third one that I think is somewhere along the lines. I don't know if you can even say anything about
yeah,
that one yet.
that one I can't talk about yet.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah,
Fair enough. Well, we know it's maybe
still,
happening someday, so we'll take it.
yeah.
I think what I was going to say before I was trying to plug my phone in was that I've been thinking you need to have a merch shop so that we can all buy Be Gay Do Therapy shirts.
Oh, I was like, somebody make a shirt. I want my Gay Do Therapy shirt.
So maybe that, because it was one of a friend or a fan or something.
No, yeah, it was somebody just like in their review. I think the Feminist Reader in her like review of her arc of Charm Offensive kind of was like the whole. She's like, if you summarize the whole book, it is just like be gay, do therapy, and I was like that.
Yeah, we need to write to her and say, excuse me, we need a t-shirt.
Please make your amazing slip.
Oh, that's awesome. And the last thing I was going to ask you is, besides the Charm Offensive, which is definitely on my favorite books of 2021, do you have any books that you were reading this year that you were especially excited about?
Oh my gosh.
I know I told you the other thing up ahead of time and I forgot to tell you that. So
no,
I always on the spot.
I have so many books that I loved this year. I mean, a lot of my absolute like favorite books that I read in 2021 actually come out in 2022. Just because part of being an author is you're always reading books that come out next year. So a couple that I just have to mention that you can like pre-order. From Vintage Books. So I absolutely love Anita Kelly's debut novel called Love and Other Disasters. So that is also a queer book set on a reality dating show. It's a reality cooking show, kind of like MasterChef. It features a non-binary main character, and Anita Kelly is fantastic. So I highly recommend that. I highly recommend Timothy Janowski's debut rom-com, which is called Never Been Kissed. And it also, I love it. It's an queer rom-com, and it also features a demisexual main character. And so that one is like super near and dear to my heart. And then I'm reading right now Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. And that's a sapphic romantic comedy that comes out in February, and it is so good. So I recommend all of those. But of books I read this year, I'm so sorry you asked me about books.
That's okay. I like
going too. my favorite, one of my absolute favorite reads of this year was The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. And that one is not a romantic comedy. It has like a romance side plot, but it is just such a like, it's one of the books that I love when you're laughing hysterically 1 second and then like sobbing the next. And that book does that for me. I also really loved Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. That one is also not a romance and is a little bit more serious. And then I'm trying to think of other, if you love science fiction, my favorite science fiction book that I read this year, I think, is How to Lose the Time War. It's really short and I love it. And it's also very gay, like most of my recommendations.
Okay. Well, I will just let everybody know I wrote these down, and when I post the live feed to our page tonight, I will put these in the comments so people can go and look at them. And I'm going to turn the comments back on really quick while we're sitting here, so that if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop in with questions. I'm looking at the comments feed now so we can see if anybody has anything that they want to put in. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I forgot. Do you ever get asked if there's going to be a sequel?
I get, yes.
Yeah, I think that's anytime anybody loves a book, I think we're all like, is there going to be a sequel?
Yeah, and the way that the book ends does kind of like seem to open up that possibility.
Yeah.
But now, no plan to write in this world again. Though I might be able to write some bonus content in the future. So stay tuned.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing that I thought of when the end is, of course, anytime we love characters, we want to read them about again. And but I think that the one I think of is, I'm totally blanking. Is it Daphne? Mm-hmm. I thought, well, a companion book would be fun.
Yeah.
We got a question from Curly and Caffeinated 007, which is a username that I like very much. And they say, I don't know if it's a she or he, so we'll say they. Can you talk a little bit about how you publish your book as an English teacher and first-time author?
Yeah, totally. So my publishing path was very much, I would say, kind of the textbook. Like if you Google how to publish a book, that is what I did. So I wrote the book early. I wrote the first draft in June of 2019. And then I spent the summer of 2019 editing the book, like making it as best as I thought I could on my own. And then I began the process of querying, which is where you try to find an agent to represent your book. And it's not the only way to get published, but it is the most typical way to get published if you want to do traditional publishing. And so I started that in late September, went through and was able to get an agent. And so I signed with my agent in November of 2019. And we spent 4 months doing the revision process because it needed a ton of work. And then we went on submission for publishers and in April of 2020. And then I signed, I think in June. So it was a full year from when I wrote it, when I accepted my book deal with Simon & Schuster. And I did all of that while teaching. And it was a lot. It was a lot to balance. There were some pretty stressful times. Yeah.
Somebody, Matthew Reed says, would Charlie and Dev be Swifties?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Super Swiftie. Like absolutely hardcore. I had so much Taylor Swift on all my playlists as I was writing this. I think that his anthem is just like Love Story from Fearless. That would be his ultimate. And Charlie would not have listened to any Taylor Swift prior to meeting Dave, but then after, of course, he would be converted and would be very into listening to the 10-minute All Too Well Taylor's version.
Awesome. Yeah, somebody earlier said, duh, Daphne. So somebody else was thinking the same thing I did. Somebody said, I received my personalized copy the other day. I can't wait for Kiss Her Once for Me. That would be awesome. Yes, those were fun. That, for me as a bookseller, I have to say, like seeing all those orders come in and just seeing the notes and kind of being vicariously, kind of seeing, like, reminded about how much the book meant to them was very special. Somebody at CJS Wago 01 wants to know, what show is Jules binge watching right now?
I love this question so much. Question. So there is a new season. I have not seen it yet, but there are new episodes of the show Pen 15, which is on Hulu. And it is just a hilarious show in which two women my age play their middle school selves in like the year 2000. And it's fantastic. And that is absolutely what Jules would watch because it is ridiculous and absurd and then like sneakily very sentimental. And so it would appeal to her Scorpio ways.
I have been getting ads for that show now, so now I have to check it out. And Curly and Caffeinated 007 basically says thank you, that they are an English teacher too, and that what is one of her favorites of the year
right now. Oh my gosh. I just was saying thank you for being a teacher. Like this year has been so difficult for teacher. I mean, the last 3 years have. So thank you for all that you're doing for your students.
So if anybody else has a question, pop them in right now because we're going to tie up here, but I want to make sure that everybody got to ask what they wanted to ask. See if anything else comes up. Oh, I was going to ask, you have a dog, yes?
I do have a dog, yes.
And I keep seeing the dog in your Instagram, and I'm wondering what the dog's name is.
Oh, his name is Daz. I'm so sorry. I'm going to do something really
that's fine. That would be lovely.
And I am going to show you that my dog is sleeping.
Here, I'm going to hide comments for a minute so we can see the
dog.
Oh,
wait, you cannot see him. There's my dog. I'm so sorry. Now you just like got a peek of my living room, but hopefully you're
okay. The pets are the best part. I have one sleeping behind me on the bed.
I had to move him from my couch, and he was really. Then he just like scooped right around.
It's like, what are you doing? I have to be on the show too.
Yes, he's so cute, but he's so sleepy right now.
All right. Well, we're going to tie up. Thank you so much, Alison, for
Thank
joining
you
us.
so much for having me and for everything. Vintage Books is the best. They ship. Yeah. So, oh, and Matthew.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, there's one more at the end.
Matthew, first of all, I don't know. Do you have all of my Spotify playlists? Because I can send you the links. And then the song that I most associate with this book, that is such a good question. Honestly, the answer is probably a lot of songs by Ben Platt, but specifically, I think Grow As We Go is probably my number one Ben Platt song that I think reminds me of this book. Anything by Ben Platt, like his first album, I just listened to it on repeat and cried while reading the book.
That's awesome. And just to let everybody know, I know that the nature of these Instagram lives is that people have to jump in and out as they go along. So if you missed the first part, I'm going to be posting it up on our Instagram page, and it's also, we've got our YouTube page up. Yay! So it's going to go. Excuse me, it's going to go up there as well. So thank you so much, Alison, for joining us, and thank you everybody who joined us tonight. And we'll talk to everybody soon. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.